Hello, Clarice.
Hello. All right, hold on. I'm starting the YouTube thing, so so take away your Clarice.
Hello, Clarice.
Hello. All right, hold on. Hey, everybody. Today is Thursday, March 4th, and it's another episode of the Prove It Live podcast. Today's episode, movement in sports, all math. You can reach us each and every week on the proveitlive.com website. And we are now on most and all podcast platforms or forums, whatever you call them. So without further ado, I go to Mike Frary.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Prove It Live podcast. I'm Mike Frary from the Farm Baseball Performance Institute, along with my co-host, Dr. Kevin McGovern of Perfect Motion Sports Therapy, and our fabulous producer, Ryan Gagne, a.k.a. Gagne West. So I'm really excited to get into our main topic of the day because I've been wanting to talk about bugging Kevin about talking about this for a little bit. And, I think Kevin's a little concerned. I understand it, that it might be a little too technical, but I actually think that this is going to help a lot of players and parents understand the why, the thing that we talk about all the time, why we do X, Y, or Z. And as Kevin mentioned in the opening, it's all based on math, geometry, physics. It's all the same. And anyway, I'm really excited to talk about that. Hopefully we can get most of it covered or all of it covered today. If not, maybe this becomes a multi-part thing. But before any of that, we have our top of the order. So we're leading off, Kevin, with JJ Watt, who recently just signed a 2-year and Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, $31 million deal, 23 of which is guaranteed.
Yep.
And 23 million guaranteed for somebody. And Ryan and I were sort of arguing about this a little bit before the podcast. From what I see, 5 of the last 6 years, or at least 4 of the last 6 years, he's been injured at some point. Now, 2015, going back to 2015, I think that was the first season, Ryan, right, that they said he actually played a full season, but that was only the regular season. He got hurt in their playoff game.
Let's back it up. In his career, 10 years, he's played 7 full seasons, including the first 5 seasons. He played all 16 games. If you go to 2015, he played all 16 games in that regular season, got hurt in the first playoff game, had to leave the game early. In the offseason, he had some surgeries to repair a couple of different issues, muscle issues, and then also had a back surgery that he had to deal with a little later on. And then he ended up re-aggravating that back injury 3 games into the 2016 season.
The very next season, right? And then there was something with 2017 as well.
Yep.
He's not Hall of Fame, is he?
2017, he only played 5 games. 2018, he went back to a full season. 2019 played the first half and then was out the last 8 games. And then last year, 2020, he played another full season. So
think about that, Kevin. They just paid this guy $23 million guaranteed. He's paid, I would say, 1 full season. Really, well, all right. So 2, right? If you include 2020, right? So just recently, 2 full seasons in the last 5 years, and I would argue 6 if you go back to 2015, where he didn't play in the playoff game. I mean, that's
why he didn't finish the game. He did start the game,
but that's why you pay a guy like that, right, to win the big ones. And so, anyway, 23 minutes. So is this not proof, Kevin, that this is just it's a cost of doing business for these sports franchises now? Like, it's almost, I remember before, guys like this wouldn't get signed. They would it would be a big deal because, they're like, no, I'm not going to give him the money. He gets injured too much, right? And football is such a short season. I mean, missing 3 games is a big deal. That could mean playoffs or no playoffs.
So look what just happened in the last week, right? Whose social media went nuts? Whose fan book page went nuts? Whose printing of articles went nuts was the Arizona Cardinals, right? No one. I mean, you have maybe a retiring star, the face of the franchise, and Larry Fitzgerald. You know, a certain first ballot Hall of Famer in everyone's book in the history of mankind as a receiver, right? You need a new face, and when these owners are making, I mean, I think I looked at like 2 years ago or something, like Bob Kraft's complete nut is paid by TV before one person sets foot in that parking lot to buy it. It's paid, and by TV alone. Everything else is profit. Everything.
Yeah.
So, you know, you look at what's 23. We look at 23 million. It's nothing to these owners. It's nothing. They're going to cry poor mouth, but it's nothing. What it does affect, obviously, is the fan, and more importantly, what about the guy who J.J. Watt's going to take his place? Who guy's probably faster, better, but because it's J.J. Watt, you want to see him on the field. What's the locker room going to be like? Like, dude, you just took my spot. You're a has-been, and to be honest with you, he's a flash in the pan as a defensive player. Like, he got a lot of hype, was really good for 5 years, but hey, it's the NFL. 5 years isn't a career. Not when guys have stuck it out for a lot longer than he has playing defense or running back, for that matter.
I'd say flash in the pan is an aggressive term.
Might be, but he's not a Hall of Famer. There's no way.
Ryan, you could look it up. Let's see how many defenders had, as many sacks as he had in his career. There was one of the stats that said
101 total.
That's right. And so his average per game is like a little over 3/4 of a sack per game, right? And they said that if he played 18 full years in the NFL, right, like Bruce Smith did, he would have the record, have 270 something sacks. That's almost double what he has, triple what he has.
Right.
I mean, that's like, that goes to show you how often he's injured. And I, you know what? I sort of sit in the middle between you guys. Like, I think, flash in the pan might be aggressive, but at the same time, like 2020 last year, he only had 5 sacks. And the year before that, Ryan, he played half the season and had twice the sacks. And he had 4 in 8 games. And then 2020 he had 5 in 16 games. Yeah. So I would be willing to bet that, Kevin, he was hurt again last year, but there's no way he's coming off that field in a contract year. That's what I think. I have no proof of that whatsoever. That's my opinion, but still.
Ryan, who are the sack leaders like the last 3 years? What's the number? Because the sack is definitely kind of diminished back when, like, the 80s, when you had like guys like Mark Gastineau were getting a crazy amount of sacks, right?
Yeah. Mark Gastineau.
Remember that name?
Yeah, I do.
Gastineau.
Yep. And LT, obviously, and Andre Tippett. And the sack was the number 1 defensive stat.
Right.
Yeah, so his brother, actually, TJ Watt, for the Pittsburgh Steelers, had 15 sacks last year.
He led the league.
He led the league with 15. Aaron Donald out in LA had 13.5. Trey Hendrickson down in New Orleans also had 13.5.
All right, so we'll say that
Hassan Reddick in Arizona, his now teammate, had 12.5 for 4th place.
So you'll say an average sack total is probably what, 9, 10
for a good
8?
Player. Yeah, for a good player, I think you got to be a
serviceable guy, right? So, I mean, what was his highest sack total of his career?
J.J. Watt?
Yeah.
He did 20.5 2 seasons. He did 2012 and 2014. He had 20.5 both of those years. In between there, in 2013, he dropped down to 10.5. Back in 2015, back up to 17.5. And then in 2018, he also had 16.
All right, so he had 5 really good years. That doesn't, I mean,
lots of guys had 5 really good years.
He also, the year he got hurt after 3 games, he only had 1.5. The year he played 5 games, this is kind of a telling stat. In those 5 games, he had 0.
Yeah.
Okay. So now the team defensively ain't good at all with him on the field, or not on the field, right? They're just not a good football team with defensively.
Yeah,
$23 million. He's personable. He's likable. He's charitable.
Very marketable.
Right, and that's what he's there for.
Yeah. No, that makes. I mean, that's right. I mean, that's sort of the point I was making was it's just the cost of doing business. They know they're going to sell crap load of jerseys, new jerseys with him. They'll be able to get more TV revenue because they'll be doing commercial. I'm sure that's in the contract as well.
Oh yeah.
And that's it. And it's
a PR gig,
which is what we were also talking about, before we went live, was that, JBJ, Jackie Bradley Jr., just signed with, who did you say, the Brewers?
Yeah, right? Brewers, 2-year deal.
With the Brewers for a 2-year deal. And
24 million.
Yeah. And good for Jackie Bradley Jr., one of the best defensive center fielders I had ever seen, personally, good swing, not the best hitter. But it led us to talk about like Mookie Betts and how, the owners of the Red Sox, I think, really screwed the pooch with that one, because that, he's one of those, one of a handful or 10 like generational players that are just, superstar type of guys. But they milked them for whatever they have. They're not selling a bunch of brand new Mookie Betts jerseys. They've already done that, right? So that's like they use these guys. They seem dispensable. So you wonder, I mean, of course, winning makes money, so they want to win, but the making money comes first, right? So if they don't have to win to make money, if winning's not going to make as much money as, perfect example, hiring Bobby Valentine to be your manager, right? I mean, that was like complete, I mean, the stuff that they do, unreal. So I don't know. It just, it irks me a little bit, but I mean, I'm good for the guys, because you're right. The owners make a killing. I heard I was listening to a show on Brady, about, him being the GOAT, et cetera. And they said that Robert Kraft is 93 on the 100 richest Americans list, worth like $6 billion. And so, yeah, I mean, good for the players. I mean, it shouldn't all go to the owners. Of course, it's the players that are doing the work on the field, but it's just something is askew. When somebody that has been hurt for more than half of the last 5 years gets that kind of money, in my opinion, and it's not like he's been putting up the numbers when he's healthy.
Oh, and from my point, I mean, injuries are cumulative. They add up. They never go away, right? You can, like, once a body, we don't regenerate, right? Once a body part is injured, you're essentially playing around it for the rest of your life. You build up muscle here, but you're building around that injury, and one leads to another, to another, to another, to another, and eventually you're just doing all compensatory mechanisms just to get out of bed in the morning. And there's no way this guy is at all healthy playing in the NFL, not a contact sport, a collision sport. Okay.
Right.
And he's not. And I can tell you that, essentially you got to look at this. They added him, and somewhere on the depth chart of the Arizona Cardinals lost their job because of that, right? Because with the salary cap, they've got to cut somebody just to make room for him. But they got to cut somebody, and that guy could be like, dude, I can run circles around J.J. Watt physically right now. I'm faster, I'm stronger, I'm healthier, but I'm out of a job.
Yep.
I guess that's the way it goes in sports and business. The whole, I mean, he's right now the team is on. No one was talking about the Arizona Cardinals 3 weeks ago. Not one bit. Not at all. Now they're back on the map, and people watch games, just like really no one was talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers until what's that guy's name? Oh yeah, Brady. Yeah, went down there.
Patrick Edward Brady.
Right? I mean, they just weren't, and now they're star players. It's kind of like when Jordan went to the Washington, I think, Bullets then, but maybe they changed it. But whatever, no one was talking about them. Next thing you know, every game is sold out because they want to see an ailing Michael Jordan. I mean, he still probably averaged 20 points a game, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't Air Jordan anymore. It was grounded Jordan. But
like you said, it didn't matter. What was important is all of a sudden you saw Bullets jerseys everywhere.
Everywhere, right?
Everywhere.
You could say the Arizona Cardinals can say, look, I saw J.J. Watt play, football. And the other thing is too, what people don't understand, like playing 16 games, 8 of which, or even in football in the Northeast, you got 8 in New England, 2 in Buffalo, 2 in New York, whatever. It's cold.
Yeah.
It's nice in Houston, okay? And he's still injured. right? It's nice, and it's
Right.
certainly nicer in Arizona. But I mean, it's it's not like this guy's had to play in Green Bay his entire career.
You can get better than Houston. They were in a dome.
Yeah,
It was like perfect
right.
temperature.
Perfect, right? But even out, I mean, it's nice weather all the time. It's not. He doesn't have to
Of
deal with
course.
it, but that's a lot of dough.
A lot of dough. All right.
Have it to pay it.
Yep. All right. So now let's get into.
Oh, here you go. He's rolling up his sleeves.
It's one of my favorites. I already rolled them up.
A little nervous.
That was my pre-show prep. Rolling my sleeves up. All right. So I want to talk about math, and there's so much in movement in his math. Mechanic, Kevin will say movement is math. He's been saying that forever. Mechanics is math. We always talk about the why. So today we want to talk about examples of that. And so we can hopefully get a better understanding of like where we're coming from as instructors and coaches and as a physical therapist, and Kevin, where our why comes from. I always tell our students, don't take my word for it. Don't believe me. Don't just believe me. We haven't known each other for that long. I don't expect me if you just like to have blind faith in me. I want you to go home after I have this lesson with you, and I want you to look up, pick whatever 5 big leaguers you want, and you're going to see all of the things that I'm asking you to do. You're going to see them doing it as well, which is one of the big reasons we started this podcast and the why would you do that segment, which I can't wait to get to. Okay. Now, we want to use hitting, Kevin, as an example. I think it's an easy example. We could talk pitching too, but if we start with hitting, the very first thing that kids are taught in hitting is their load position, right? And I know I'll say it ad nauseum. I'll say it again. Stances are like snowflakes, right? They're all different. You very, very rarely will you even find 2 stances alike in Major League Baseball. But when they are ready to hit, when they're in there, some people call it a launch position, some people call it load position. It's after they've taken their step, they've landed their front foot, they've loaded into their back hip, etc. And you're going to see their hands in a very specific spot. Now, their feet are going to be wider than their shoulders. They're going to be athletic. They're going to look like a linebacker pre-snap, right, with their hips back, their butt down,
like JJ Watt, or
like JJ Watt when he's healthy.
That was the layup.
And the hands, Kevin, all we're doing with the hands, everyone, is we're presetting our hands for contact. So our load position hands, it's contact. And the reason is because we're not going to use our hands. We're going to use our strong muscles to rotate to the ball, and our hands are going to stay still until that point. And that's when we'll get into the math now.
So Mike, you said before that every major league, both you and Ryan said every major league hitter looks exactly the same. When was it like at contact or at load, point, at load position?
Position and most at contact for the most part too. There's a bunch of constants, right? Yeah. And when we say exactly, obviously there's small nuances, right? One guy might have his hands a little bit higher. One guy's back elbow might be a little bit higher, a little bit more down. But generally speaking, again, if you saw silhouettes of hitters, I would challenge anybody to tell me who they are.
Okay.
Stance.
That would be our constant in our math formula. We'll call it our X.
There you go.
All right. There's our X.
So the first place that most hitters go wrong, the very first place, is their first move after load position. They're in that perfect position. Their very first move needs to be to the ball or to contact. And this is where a lot of hitters, and Ryan's seen this too. And I would say, I would gamble that close to 80%, maybe more actually, of hitters that first come in our facility, young, old, high school, college, if they need work, to softball players, in the same age range, we're going to see a lift of the front shoulder and a pull away from contact. Now, again, this is more geometrical, right? But you obviously want your force going into the ball. If you were trying to, let's say, chop a tree down with a little hatchet, small tree, small axe, right? Total hatchet. You would generate force by swinging into the tree, not by pulling away from in the opposite direction of the tree. And then hitting it with the axe almost by accident, right? I mean, you could easily miss the tree that way. So the first thing is to move into the ball. We're going to move into the ball with our preloaded hands at contact. We're going to rotate into contact. And Kevin, you know this. I know you say all the time, you don't know hitting, but movement. We rotate with our core, and we have our hips pull our hands to the ball because we want the big muscles doing the work, right? That's efficiency. That's another conversation for another time. Okay. Now, here's two things, and these are the two main points that I want to get to. Number one, we're at the point of contact. Okay. We want to be short to the ball, right? That's why we rotate. We want to be quick to contact. All right. And then we want to be long through it. Now, they don't have stats for 65-mile-an-hour fastballs. None that I could find anyway. Okay. All the stats and all the research is done at the pro level, the collegiate level. Now, I think most people do know that you've got like 0.4 of a second to react to a 90-mile-an-hour fastball. Okay. And the way that our eyes, the average human's eyes work, out of the hand, we don't see that ball straight out of the hand. It's blind to us for the first like 5 to 8 feet. It's also invisible for the last 3 to 5 feet. Again, generally speaking here, roundabouts. So you have this small window in between, right? 8 feet, away from the pitcher, where you have to recognize the pitch, what it is, fastball, curveball, changeup, where it's going, inside, outside, up, down, whether you want to swing or not, and then when. So you have to process all this information. This is the first math equation. If your bat speed is not 70 miles an hour or above, you will not hit that consistently. So when people say, why is it so important to hit with the legs? Doesn't it make more sense to draw a straight line with the hands to the ball? No. For many reasons, it doesn't. You don't want a straight line. We want to get on plane, but that's another thing we'll get to in a second. But we want to be fast to the ball, and then we're going to go through it. So if your bat speed is not, if you're not swinging with your legs, you're not going to get 70 mile an hour bat speed. And if you're not going to get 70 mile an hour plus bat speed, you're just not going to hit 90 consistently. You're just not. You may hit it. You may run into one. You may guess and start swinging real early, which you'll see happen sometimes with kids who are overmatched, and they may run to the bat. They may be just happening to swing in the same plane that the pitcher's throwing the pitch, but consistently not going to happen. And this is an important thing, Kev. And Ryan knows this too, because this is the biggest. This is why you see such a major drop off at 15 years old in baseball. And I don't know yet about softball, but I'm assuming it's probably similar. But at 15, see this huge drop off is because these kids that use these bats that are almost like cheating, these aluminum bats, most of their career, and they're facing pitchers that don't throw that hard because they're not mature enough to do so. And they can get away with lots of stuff. Their swing doesn't have to be on point. But once you get to the point where you're facing faster fastballs, doesn't have to be 90, right? This applies at any speed, obviously. The faster the pitch, the faster your bat speed has to be. So you can see the ball longer. So you can make those decisions in that window. If you're not at 70, you're not going to have time. Okay. And let me do the one other one too, Kev. And then I want to talk to you about some movement math. The second thing that we want to do in order to maximize contact and hitting, that should be a constant. And this is a big one because you're going to see a lot of wacky stuff out there on social media now. And I know why it is. Launch angle, as you know, Kev, has become a real hot topic, right? Everyone talks about launch angle. They didn't talk about launch angle 20 years ago. Okay. In fact, I run into countless coaches telling you to hit the ball on the ground. Hit it on the ground. You want ground balls up the middle. And then if you hit a home run by accident, great. What an asinine way to that's almost like telling your kid, hey, look, you should shoot for finding a job for minimum wage when you get older, right? Hey, if you happen to end up at a Fortune 500 company, kudos, right? It's dumb. It's the other way around, right? Okay, so we're quick to the ball. We have to generate this bat speed in order to hit pitches consistently. That's number one. We get to see it longer. The faster our speed, we see it longer. The second thing is to stay on plane of the pitch. So the average fastball, Kevin, comes at a -8 to -10 degree angle. And now when you include off-speed pitches, you're getting up into the -14 degrees, 12 degrees, -14 degrees, etc. So we want to match that plane. We want to play chicken with the baseball, right? So the baseball is coming at that slight down angle. You want to go with a slight upward angle. So your attack angle, not your launch angle, your attack angle, that's the angle of your bat, should be at, no secret, somewhere between 8 to 12, 13, even 14 degrees, okay, to match that pitch. The longer we're staying in the zone, the longer we're staying behind that ball and on the same plane, we have a much greater chance of contact. We have a much lesser risk of swinging and missing. Am I making sense so far?
You actually are.
So I'm trying to get through this, and I don't want to get too technical, but this is like a super passionate topic of mine. So, and that's when the hands come in, by the way, right? So once you get to contact, now our hands start to extend. Our bottom hand is going to pull up and through with our elbow down, pull up and through the knob. It's almost like we're taking the knob of the bat and we're pulling it right towards the pitcher's forehead. And then the top hand's going to extend straight. And, with those two things, you should get that, 8 to 12, 8 to 14 degree launch angle. Now, what we'll see instead out there, I should stop. The reason we're doing that obviously is to make contact with the ball, right? Also, we're always taught to, and you should be taught to hit through the lower half of the ball, right? You want to hit center, just under center, and drive underneath. Now we know why. We know it's because it creates another new thing that's coming about in hitting is spin rate. We've known spin rate, and we know what that's meant to baseball and pitching for a long time. We really didn't have any idea what it meant for hitters, but now we know that the higher not exactly the higher the spin, but there's a sweet spot. We want to be in like that 2,000 to 3,000 RPM backspin, because that's going to create loft. That's going to keep the ball sailing up, right? And so if we hit a ball center mass hitting through the lower half at that swing plane, we should generate approximately anywhere between 25 and 30 degree launch angle. There's the term, launch angle, right? Launch angle with good spin. If we're hitting, again, lower half of the ball, we get somewhere in a 2,000 RPM spin. Those are what are the home runs and the triples and the big long doubles. That's what successful hitting is, right? So there is absolute math. None of this obviously is my opinion. I didn't unfortunately invent math or physics or geometry, right? But this stuff, I've said it all along, this stuff should make sense. Your hitting coach your coach should be able to explain the why, and it should make sense. There's nothing mystical or mythical about baseball, right? There isn't. There's no such thing as a natural this or a natural that. It's a skill sport. All of this stuff can be learned. Of course, the bigger, stronger you are and you do this stuff right, the better you're going to be. But this is all very, very much a learned dynamic. Okay. There's my rant. Nice, buddy.
Already got through that.
So,
Mikey, what is, looking at this, what do parents take from what you just said? Like what should they, because there's a lot, and we'll get into it at the end. There's a lot of noise out there. I just wrote in my weekly PT or monthly PT newsletter how much noise there is just from my profession on just stuff that doesn't work. Not only stuff that doesn't work. I mean, you put back pain in Google and search it, how to fix it, and you'll come up with all kinds of crazy things. Some work, some don't, some are hurtful. Same thing with hitting, except it's probably tenfold. So right. What does someone look for in having their kid improve, which is why you guys are in business? Well, I'm trying to keep them healthy and improving, which is why I'm in business. So what does someone look for in that?
It's a great question. And I think the real simple answer is, again, the why. If your son or daughter is getting instruction, whatever it is, okay, because a lot of this stuff applies to pitching. We don't have time to get into that, not today, but there's always a reason why, and it should equal to increase performance or to keep you healthy or both, right, as we talk about. So you're gonna see your kid do lots of drills, right? If you go have them having hitting instruction, if they join a program, do lots of drills. Talk to your kid and ask them what they're doing. If you're able, right now we're in this weird COVID time, so a lot of parents can't be in the facilities, but typically they're in there and they watch training, they watch lessons. You should make sure that your child is comfortable asking why they might be doing something, and if you're there, ask why. Just, and you don't have to be rude about it. Just say, hey, I noticed you're doing this drill. What was that for? What is what is that? What's that improve? What are you trying to improve when you do that? And, how does it help improve that? That's all. And they should be able to answer that. If it's some weird answer, like, well, dude, this is what A-Rod did when he was 15. Like, okay, why'd he do it? Right. So it should be doesn't have to be as mathematical and complicated as I just threw at you, but right. But there should be an answer. There should be a reason for it.
Or, really, I'm sure you guys don't do drills without explaining the why, which is the key to me with everything, both in my profession and yours. So, if you've got to search and ask why, you may want to search down the street for someone else to tell you the why before the drill is even done, the purpose of that drill. But that's good. I like that. What else? The angle of the coming in, I'm assuming that angle, since you said negative, is measured from from parallel to the ground. That's the axis, right? So
Right.
Negative towards, okay.
Yeah, I think it's actually they start at the middle of the strike zone. Now, another thing that's important to know, talking about that angle is, and I might not have the exact percentage right, but you can look it up. A very large percentage, the majority of strikes are thrown below the belt, right? So they're down in the zone, and that's where pitchers are taught to live. You want to throw down in the zone. You want to stay away from the up in the zone. So not only is it just strikes in general that we're trying to hit, but it's really a particular part of the strike zone that we're going to see the majority of these pitches. And so to want to match the angle on that, and there's a lot to do with that. There's top hand control. Your top hand is your guide hand, and that's gonna create the angle of your barrel to hit pitches at different levels. But yeah, it's more the bottom. Now, I should say, Kevin, that what this is sort of created, which I know on our "Why Would You Do That" segment, we're going to talk more about this, but it's created this like, oh, we want a 30-degree launch angle. We want 30. Some people say 35. Okay. And so they go, all right, well, we want to have our bat swing at that angle so that when we hit it, if we hit it square, boom, it's going to go at 35. But what we've learned is that you don't necessarily want to square the ball perfectly all the time, because when you do that, you're going to be in the single digits in terms of RPM for your spin, and it's not going to travel as far. Unless, not that you can't. Guys can hit balls perfectly and launch them out of the park. We have a player that does it all the time. But that player also hits it a lot farther when their spin is up in that 2000 range, right? So
it cuts the air better.
Exactly.
Golf's the same way. They talk about, sweet spot of a driver, of almost the same numbers that you said, that spin rate is.
Yeah.
I think a lot of baseball metrics have come from the golf industry of measuring clubs and balls coming off the club face like that.
As a matter of fact, Kevin, like the technology that we use, Rapsodo hitting, which is, highly regarded as one of, if not the most accurate in terms of measuring those metrics, started in golf. It was first a golf device. And yeah, you're right. In terms of ball flight, and that's what they are. It's ball flight metrics, or batted ball metrics is what we say. But that's exactly it, and I can tell you, and now having thousands and thousands and thousands of swings recorded on this, on our device. And I've learned from this too. You can see that, the velocity of the exit velocity, anything like 85 and up is really good. And, if you have that launch angle 20 degrees or, between 20, 30 degrees, the difference, if you have all the things being equal, 85, 2 hits, both at 85 miles an hour, both at, let's call it 25 degrees, but one of them has a 2000 or 2200 RPM spin, that ball is going to travel nearly 30 feet farther than the ball squared. So that's a big difference, because that could be the difference between a routine fly out and obviously a home run.
So is there a mathematical equation or range for a home run?
There is. Now, it depends on the speed of sometimes it depends on the speed of the pitch if you're talking about balls that don't have the great spin. And it also depends on the size of the park. With that said, if you're at, let's say, 90 miles an hour exit velocity, which is, again, the major league average is like 91. Now, I'm saying this not to sit here and pat myself on the back, but Ryan can attest to this. We have, Ryan, like 8 high schoolers that are in the mid 90s, and we have one that's, up over 100 pretty consistently. So if you get a 90, and the only reason I say this because I'm not talking fantastical numbers here. This is something that can be achieved by a high school player. If you're at 90 miles an hour and you hit that at 25 degrees and you get a 2200 RPM spin, that ball's going out. All right. And that holds true up to about 30 degrees, even a little bit higher, depending on the velocity. So if you get 95 miles an hour exit velocity, you can increase that that launch angle to 30 degrees and it's still going out. Right.
Okay. So
as of a year ago, in a couple of days, it'll be a year ago. The average MLB exit velo is 89 miles an hour. 91 miles an hour puts you in the top 40, and anything above 92 puts you in the top 15.
Yeah, I think. Did you get that from Rapsodo's site?
No, I can go directly
okay.
there.
Well, because I think that might have been updated, but it's right that same thing. And by the way, that's measured off the tee, right? So this is exit velocity off the tee, which your velocity is going to only go up, in like front toss and then it's going to go up then again, even more in overhand, right? So you have more force to the ball, so you got more potential energy involved.
So I have a question. So
Sure.
you said that there was a sweet spot for backspin, right?
Yep.
A spin rate, right?
Right.
Can you tell me what below the spin rate happens, and then above it, what happens to the ball?
So the lower the spin rate, okay, let's say it's in the single digits, right, under 1,000, it's not going to cut through the air as well, and it's going to it's not going to stay up in the air long. You're not going to get any loft out of that.
Okay. Is that a ground ball, or is that
no, a ground ball will usually come from top spin. So you could have a 2,000 RPM spin, but it's top spin.
top spin?
And that's when
So
you're going
backspin is something it's in the air.
It's it, right. Backspin is in the air, and the top spin. And a lot of times, if it's not a ground ball, it's one of those, and you've seen it. We've all seen it growing up, like those sinking line drives.
Yes,
those are the top spinners. You obviously don't want that. You're kind of rolling over on the ball when you're doing that. And by the way, I should say that, and this is something we've known for a while, and sort of knew why, but now we have a real good understanding of why. You can easily hit a curveball farther than a fastball. And the reason for that is it already has the backspin. And so, right. With a curveball, you really just have to redirect that ball, right? You don't have to swing it 100%. You stay back, you barrel it up, and it's already got that backspin. If you can imagine, you get a guy like a Trevor Bauer or, Garrett Cole, and those guys have these high spin rate fastballs, they're 2,300 spins on their fastballs, right? Going the other way. So you have to stop the spin of the ball, reverse it, and send it out. So you got to that's a 4,000 RPM swing. It takes a lot of energy to do that, right? So with curveballs, we can just kind of redirect them. They're easier to lift in the air a lot of times, and they're easy to get a good spin from because the pitcher's sort of creating it for you.
All right. So what's a 2,800, 3,000? Is that a pop-up?
Correct. No, 2,800 is still good. I think you can get into, again, depending on the batter, if it's a high exit velocity hitter, you can get into 32, 3,300, and that ball's still going to go. So they hit the ball really hard. But once you get into the 35 range, yeah, you're getting too far under the ball. Now you're getting into a real miss. And for people just listening, I'm kind of using my fist here as a bat and a ball, two rounded things. If I hit just under center and can push through it, create the backspin. If I got too far under, if you could just imagine the angle, it's almost now on top of the bat. So that thing's just going to go almost straight up in the air.
So going back to what you said about Garrett Cole and Trevor Bauer coming in, I think they're both around a 2,300 spin rate coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Go through that with the bat. So if someone meets that with force on the lawn, that because of the pitcher's spin rate, that's still, I guess my question is, even if you square the ball up, could it still have a negative outcome? Could the ball still be what happens to that ball?
Yes, totally. So, and that's another reason why spin is important for pitchers now. So those guys out of their hand, okay, as a fastball, their fingers are coming down, they've got that spin, okay? They've got that backspin out of their hand. As it's approaching the hitter, it's the opposite. It's like a top spin coming in. Right. And so we got to stop that spin and reverse it in the other direction. So that's not easy to do, okay? And you have to swing really hard, be able to create a lot of bat speed in order to do that. Look, there's a lot of potential energy, right? Which I don't know science that well, which it means you can hit a ball pretty far. Sometimes you hear the pitcher's generating the power. That is true a lot of times. But the old knuckleball hit, right? You see the outfielder kind of freeze and it's like knuckleball. That's a ball that's perfectly squared, right? And it's hit just like a knuckleball. Knuckleballs, you very rarely see knuckleball home runs, right? I don't know if I've seen one. I'm sure they've maybe happened, but you really, really got to tie into a ball in order to do that. So what that's going to do, that spin, especially what it's going to do to for their velocity for those pitchers, it's going to keep the ball on a higher plane. It's going to resist gravity longer. So when you see those balls that come in, you can see it more from the outfield sometimes. When outfielders with really good arms throw the ball, it seems like the ball seems to almost hop, right? And they used to talk about Roger Clemens throwing a rising fastball, Dwight Gooden. That's what it is. It's that high spin rate. It's not that it's going up. It's just not going down like the other fastballs are, and it's staying high on a level plane. So it creates a lot of problems for hitters, right? And the plane of the pitch, the amount of energy that they got to literally reverse. It creates a lot of issues.
Good. All right. I like that. All right.
All right. Now,
questions, right?
We got questions.
So let's go over this question. I think that's probably more.
By the way, sorry, Kevin, I didn't mean to interrupt, but just real quickly, if anything that we talk about in here too, if you have any questions about, like, it doesn't have to be new stuff you want us to talk about in the future, which we're happy to do. If you have any topics you want us to cover, but if you have any questions about anything that we cover, feel free to reach out to the show. Kevin will give the email address at the end.
Info at proveitlive.com. Just send us an email, say, hey, I didn't understand this, or need more information on that, and we'll bring it up. We'll definitely respond to you for 100%, and then we'll bring it up on the show. Absolutely.
All right.
So we had a question.
Yeah. So one of the parents in our program asked a question a few weeks back, and they wanted to know, at what age do you specialize? Specialize might not be the right word, but at what age do you really start to have your child focus on one sport?
Good question.
That's a good question.
Do you want to take a first stab? Or you want me to take a stab at it?
Yeah, I think it's not. There's not. First of all, there's certainly not a end all be all. But let's circle back to the first part of the show. Everything. I'm going to say this. It's going to sound controversial. The world goes around for one reason, and that's the almighty dollar. It's money. Okay. So if said sport that your son or daughter is good at is going to get them paid in any way, shape, or form, and the more they play it's going to get them more paid. And I mean that in terms of, we're all great at pro contract, but I'm talking about school. I mean, college is like $75,000 a year. So if specializing in a sport is going to get them into a Division I school that they're going to get and not have to pay for college and be saddled with debt, that's certainly a factor. Okay. That's number one. Okay. Like it or not, that's just the way life is. All right. From my perspective, from a movement perspective, okay, should kids be more well-rounded and play different sports? Yeah, but I mean, the functional movements, everyone asks me, well, do you teach, specifically baseball, or do you teach football? Yeah, I teach it all, right? Because the fundamental movements are all the same for every single sport. Okay, you have to be able to squat. You've got to be able to scapular press. You got to be able to rotate. It's the same. All right. So, I guess we have the fun meter. Do we want to continually play the same sport? Are you having fun at it? If you're having fun at it and you like going to train to be better at it, then do that. If you like playing other sports, then do that. If you're playing a sport like the two bad ones, or probably three, which would be soccer, basketball, and football. And I only use that for the literally pounding on your joints. Okay. The running, the cutting, the being chased after and trying to be killed and tackled in football. Your body may need a rest from those sports. All right. Basketball, as I sit here now, needing at least one knee replacement from the sport of basketball. It's a lot, and some of these programs, I had a kid in my office the other day playing 3 games in a day, basketball. What? Yeah. Oh yeah. No, 1, 2. What? Like 3. That's just a ton of poundage. So the body does need to rest, but that doesn't mean it rests in front of the computer doing nothing. So if you want your child to take time off, there's other sports out there that aren't, they could just, take a semester off and train and do things. They could play golf. They could do other things that continually have movement and competition that aren't pounding on the body. Baseball is not a sport where you are pounding your body unless you're a pitcher. I do think the body needs rest. So I think it's a balance. I don't think there's one right answer. I think you've got to weigh all of those factors. I mean, obviously, if your kid is 15 years old and throws 92 miles an hour at 15, or has an exit velocity on his swing of 90 miles an hour, 92 miles an hour, some people are going to start to look at him or her, and you may need to make some decisions as to their future. And unfortunately, those decisions at the end of the day are all going to result, no matter what someone says, are going to result about money. How much money are we going to get? What's the scholarship going to be? If not, we wouldn't be having this conversation. The question would never have come up, because the answer would be go outside and play, because that's what it was in the 80s.
Right. I think that's a great answer. That's a really great answer. Actually, I think you covered all of it, because that's my short answer would be like, depends on what your goal is, right? I mean, if the player's goal is to have fun and to be, play as many competitive sports as possible through high school and make as many varsity teams, then you should do that. For those that are really super passionate about one sport and they're, it's like come hell or high water, I'm playing college baseball or whatever sport they're in, then yeah, I think there's possibly a time where you have to, focus on that one sport, and only because that's what so many other people are doing now. So like Kevin, when you and I were playing high school, and I played multi-sports, I think you played multi-sports, Ryan played multi-sports, there wasn't someone else out there gaining this giant advantage on you while you were playing basketball. Right now there are.
Yeah, well, you guys are in business in the 80s, right?
Exactly.
There's no such thing as, right. I mean, I first heard of AAU anything was from basketball. It was like 5-star basketball camps.
Yes.
And, oh, yeah, there's like this AAU. Like, what the hell is AAU, right? But now there's AAU everything. AAU soccer, so the industry, bazillion-dollar industry of youth sports, mega bazillion dollars, has prompted that question.
Yes.
Yep. Because it is, at the end of the day, keeping up with the competition, right? You don't want to be bypassed by somebody down the street who you might be better than, but they're playing baseball or softball or football, 9 months out of the year. And look at it. There's we can look at the draft, okay, in any sport, okay? Florida, Texas, California, all right? The reason why so many athletes are drafted out of those states is because they're playing that sport all year round because of the weather.
Right.
That's it.
And that's why it's actually switched a little bit. And that's why you are seeing tons of kids drafted and recruited out of the Northwest and Northeast now for the reason that we are able to train you around. And, it's a tough question because, and that's the last thing I'll say on it is that, I've had a lot of college coaches come in our facility to talk to our kids, and they all say that we want athletes. We want multi-sport athletes, and I'm sure they would, given their pick between two of the exact same, attributes and skills. Maybe they take the athlete, but my response to that is, well, you want the 95-mile-an-hour arm first, right? So if you got a multi-sport athlete throwing 88 and you got another guy throwing 95 that's only focused on baseball the last 3 years, well, sorry, that multi-sport athlete is SOL.
You'd be a great athlete if your kid can't make a 3-pointer and he's a guard.
Right.
Not going to college, right? I mean,
that's right.
The way it is.
Exactly. All right. How are we on time? We're okay. We got a little bit. We should probably. I know we had a second question that was related to that, but we're going to save that.
Yeah, we're going to save that because I think that our next why would you do that ties into what we've been talking about.
Why would you do that?
And there certainly isn't math involved in any of this.
There is. It's bad math. All right.
Gagne
Fructis.
Yeah. So I'll give a little background to those who don't know. The show is obviously created a lot for the noise that's on social media. And there's a lot of it with my industry, with sporting industry about different things. And you don't know what's right or wrong, unfortunately. And I'll see thousands of likes on a pitching mechanic that is literally harmful, And what those viewing or can see on their screen is there is that. Yeah, there is this. I don't even want to call it old school. I don't think
this is new.
Oh yeah, new. But I was going to say I don't think that Mikey and Ryan, you guys are old school. You're teaching hitting and you're using metrics to improve that hitting, okay, by using numbers and because movement creates stuff and movement creates math and all that kind of stuff. So there's the old guys. There's some major league players out there, and there's you guys. There's a few different patterns of hitting. So this, I guess it's called the high level pattern of hitting, has come on to the social media by storm. Okay, there are a lot of people using this, a lot of players using this. And I guess this guy is the grandfather or godfather of the high level pattern hitting that we're about to see.
A lot of younger players, you will not see big leaguers do this, by the way.
Well, not according to the godfather, that you do see big leaguers doing it. They just don't know they're doing it.
Well, when you watch what he does, you won't see any big leaguer doing that. But go ahead.
So many of these patterns, for me, violate or what he professes, because I've tried to engage this gentleman, and he absolutely knows. I can tell you firsthand, zero about the human body and how it works at all, ever, because every time he engages with me, it's like a true person on social media. They don't want to dispute the facts. They want to dispute, they want to take negative shots. And this guy has been in my bullseye for a long time because he does not know one thing about the human body. And every time he engages, it makes even less and less sense when he's talking about it because he knows less and less about the human body. So, I'll let you guys roll with this from that. Here's the background. So this high level pattern hitting is what this is called. And then you guys can go from there.
So Ryan, why don't you play this video and then I'll sort of start saying my piece. So the basis of it now, if you watch, everyone that swings, all right, takes their head away from the contact area. That kid probably was the better of all of them. Took his head off the hitting area, took his head off the hitting area. Okay. Now, when you see this, the main guy here showing this, he always, one of the first things we talked about, like not pulling your shoulder off. See his head? You have to watch the ball. You have to, now while seeing contact is technically impossible. Okay. You want to follow the ball all the way to the contact point, right? You'll see hitters, good hitters. If they're taking a pitch, they're still following the ball all the way back, right? And you see he keeps taking. Now, one of the reasons is the front shoulder is highly activated in this swing, and you don't want that. The other thing now, by the way, his premise here, just so it's understood, is that, it's what I was talking about earlier. Let's create a 30-degree attack angle to get a 30-degree launch angle. Now, if you can imagine the problem with that geometrically, right? So one ball's moving in a straight line that we said, call it negative 10 degrees, and he's swinging up at 30 degrees, right? That's not playing chicken with the ball. Your contact has to be so precise. Your timing, rather, has to be so precise. So that's two problems with it. The third one is what I think what he's showing right now. Yeah, right there.
He's like, so I can show the view, like,
is the posture.
Yeah, everyone's on their, imagine standing in a completely open stance, all of your weight on your back foot, but not in a very good squat position, knees way over your toe, and then you're bending at the waist and dropping your shoulder. It's from a movement standpoint, you couldn't be in a worse position to do an athletic movement than this.
His knees are usually
tucked in hard here. This front shoulder way flying open.
Yeah. So his plate coverage is, your plate coverage with this.
And even going back to that, Ryan, if you can rewind that back, if we look at his yellow shirt here, you can see the spine tilt. That's something we haven't talked about. If you if you're watching or listening, just tilt your spine to your left side and then try to turn to your right. Yeah. Good luck. Right. Your spine locks into place.
That's right.
You're fighting your own body to move.
So this is a perfect example of somebody trying to reinvent something.
You see this one right here too. Like this is, you'll end up seeing this all upper half. Nothing down here moves if you watch this one.
Yeah. His right? Back foot doesn't move. Yep. And so look, so many problems with it. But in a nutshell, it's stuff that, and the reason we bring it up because unfortunately the guy does have a lot of followers, and I think it's because he alleges to have worked
thousands.
Yeah, he alleged to work with Aaron Judge once. Now, the closest, you will not see big leaguers swinging like this, by the way, but the closest I think you will see is someone like a Giancarlo Stanton, right, who does lift his front elbow high. He crashes his back elbow down. He also strikes out 500 times a year, right? Or a million.
and as a Yankee fan, only hits a home run when his bat runs into the ball,
Right.
not by skill. As far as I'm concerned, because I as a student of the game, he's got more holes in that swing. I mean, and if pitchers continually throw it there where his swing, because he can only hit. So this high level pattern is supposed to get huge plate coverage. Giancarlo Stanton can only hit a ball middle in that one box. Anything away, down, up and away, can't hit.
That's right. And the thing is, off a tee, you can probably show plate coverage off a tee with that because you're swinging to the ball rather than swinging through the path of the ball, right? I mean, your swing never changes on an outside pitch, inside. It's all the same. It's just a matter when you hit it, you rotate all the way to an inside pitch, you rotate to a middle pitch, you rotate to an outside pitch, and it's all the same swing. But, you see guys like this to just to prove that what they're doing, quote unquote, works,
And there's but you engage with someone like that when you try to engage with someone in debate, again, we could talk about politics, we can talk about whatever and they attack you personally. Well, you're not engaging the issue. That just tells me that you're even more ignorant than before. And I've just blocked the guy on social media because he just is such an ignoramus. He is such an idiot. Right, because he just won't. He maybe he's not. I have no idea. But he never debates the issues. He just debates that you're in. I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
Okay. So again, folks, someone we talk about the reason why, because he can't tell you why. He can't tell you why ducking your head and throwing is hitting the ball because there is no why. There's no anatomical reason why. There's no kinesiological reason why. There's just no why. And I have countless of people who have worked with quote unquote players. He played that are in my office with shoulder and elbow injuries. Countless. I don't even want to begin to tell you, including one I had this week. Okay, that's the first thing I said. If you're looking for bus rides from the Carolina League, from the Durham Bulls to the Jacksonville, whatever, I'm not your guy. Okay, but I can tell you what, someone on that bus isn't your guy either. Okay,
right.
Because you're sitting in front of me. So you have to have the 3-letter word is why. Why are you doing that? What does it prove? And what's the result? And if your coach or your mentor cannot prove those to you live, run. Save your money and run. Spend it elsewhere.
That's right. And by the way, last thing I'll say too is there's no such thing as immediate results. Okay. And I don't want to go too in depth with this because I'm going to quickly get into an area where I don't know what I'm talking about. However, I know that the muscle memory process, it's a process called myelination in the brain, and it takes a while for the brain to learn a new movement. So, and this is something I was just having a conversation with one of our softball players because this girl's been struggling with one particular issue and she's been working on it and she's actually getting better at it, but she's still frustrated. And because in her mind, it's, well, this is broken. I just do this and it's fixed. And it doesn't happen that way. Especially not with a reactive skill like hitting, where you're relying entirely on muscle memory. You're not going to have time in the hitter's box to think, okay, I got to get my foot down. I got my hands in this spot. I have to then turn my back. The ball's by you. You can't be thinking it. You got to see it and react. During the games, it's time to just be an athlete. When you're in training, it's the time to work on this stuff and think about what's moving and having a feel for that. But that's real important to understand, is that anyone that's claiming to fix something like that, they're telling you they're going to defy the function of your human brain. But that said, you should see progress, right? If you're with somebody, you should see progress over time for sure, right? And you should see it, but just understand that it should come in, smaller increments that end up being the total fix in the long run.
Absolutely.
Right.
All right, Ryan, what do you got? We got last word. Been pretty silent all day. Stats are good.
Yep. I got nothing else.
I did get a comment from one of my patients who listened who said, wow, we really like Ryan, the stat guy. I'm like, yeah, he does a good job. So you got some kudos there, man.
Thinking of my fans.
Yeah,
I'm here for
you
guys.
have an allegiance of fans. All right. Well, we are here each and every Thursday, most likely at 11:30 a.m. unless there's some computer issues. But if you do need to contact the show, info@proveitlive.com is one way to get us. Again, Mike and Ryan work at the Farm Baseball Performance Institute in Waltham, Massachusetts. They're all over social media. And I own and operate Perfect Motion Sports Therapy. And I'm all over social media.
By the way, just last thing is that we still expect to have Dr. O.
Oh yes,
we did plan on having him come on today, but maybe Kevin, you can.
Yeah, but unfortunately, Dr. O took a week off from rehab or reconstructing elbows and had a bunch of cases pile up while he was gone for spring training, which is not a good sign. That he had a bunch of surgeries to catch up on. So that's where he is. We will get him on the show. He wants to come on the show. It's just a matter of getting all of our schedules to jive. So look for Luke O from Massachusetts General Hospital to be a guest very soon on our program.
Love it. Love that.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
See ya.